Welcome to the Pepper Fox Podcast, where we believe that nothing will empower individuals and strengthen humanity more than theater and film. Throughout this podcast, we will be sharing our favorite tips for actors, headshot expertise, and ways we live a creative lifestyle. Tune in for interviews with actors living their dreams and creatives dedicated to enriching their own communities. I'm your host, Bree Welch, actor, headshot photographer, mommy, and lover of Dr. Pepper. Let's do this. Hey, I'm so excited to have you here. Today we are talking to Liz Whittaker, and she is a jack of all trades. She is a sound designer, she is a director, she is a phenomenal actress. But what I'm really excited to talk to her today about is her latest education in intimacy choreography. I had no idea really what it was, and so we break that down a little bit about what that includes and kind of like what would happen if Liz were to come into your rehearsal process. It's really, really interesting, and as you all know, I am a huge advocate for safety in the theater and how unless we can achieve safety in our boundaries and in everything that we do in the theater, there's no way that we can create invulnerability and as our best selves. So I'm really excited to dive into this. Just a heads up for this episode, we do talk about physical intimacy. There's a little bit about nudity and there's a little bit about sexuality. It's still definitely a PG episode, but just a heads up if the kids are around. Okay, let's get this going. Hello, you guys. Say hello, Liz.
Hi, everyone.
I am here with Liz Whittaker, and I'm so excited. We're gonna all learn today because I'm just really curious about what she's up to, and I think it's gonna be really educational because it's such a new thing. First of all, though, we're gonna rewind back in the day and talk about where did your love of theater first start?
I don't remember.
It was that long ago.
Yeah, I can't remember a time when I didn't want to do theater.
Yeah.
I do have like vague like toddler memories of my mom taking me to like a high school production of Rodgers and Hammerstein's Cinderella.
Yeah.
But even before that, it was partly also the Mary Martin Peter Pan that we had on
pure
video
magic
cassette. It's magic.
It really is.
And I can remember watching that and going, yeah, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
And it never really changed.
I love that. That's amazing. So when did you first start? Do you remember your first production when you were in one?
Because it was not until I was older.
Yeah.
I did a lot of different like hobbies growing up, but the whole time I was like, well, when I'm older, I'll do theater. And then I started auditioning for stuff in high school and didn't get into anything at first.
Hey,
and then
we're all there. I get you.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's like juggling. Like there's just a period of time where you're just really bad at it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, like bad at auditioning. You're like, I don't know how to like show up and get over my nerves.
A little bad at auditioning.
Yeah. Yeah. I would love to be great at auditioning.
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
I force myself before every single audition. I spend like 3 days going, I don't want to do this. I hate doing this.
Why do I do
don't
this
like
myself?
Yeah. I don't want to do it. And then it's always worth it.
You're like, nailed it. Oh, I love it. So, okay. You got started in theater. It was always a love of yours. Mm-hmm. And then you started doing it later on in teenage years.
Yeah. So I got my first role. I played Amy in Little Women.
Stop.
So it was a special little story to me.
That's adorable.
And then I just didn't stop.
Yeah.
I like all through college, my undergrad was in theater education.
Where did you study?
BYU, Idaho.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was very cold.
Seriously. So great. And then did you always do straight theater, musical theater, all of it?
All of it.
Yeah, you
did. My strength is in order: acting, singing, dancing.
Mine too.
I did ballet for years, but then as you get older, you're like, oh, my knees are not happy about this.
Seriously, though. I think knees age a lot faster than any other part of our body.
I don't understand why.
Yeah, I feel you.
Yeah. So I love, like, times in my life where I've only been doing musicals. After a while, I'm like, oh, I want to do a straight play. I miss just like a straight play. And then when I've only been doing straight plays, after a while, I'm like, oh, I want to do a musical.
Yeah, it's like good to keep it fresh. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's so great. Yeah. Okay, so you love so many different facets of theater.
I do.
And what's your favorite? Like, first of all, tell everyone what you do.
Okay, I am an actor and a director. I've done a bit of choreographing.
Perfect. Yes.
I also have an MFA in writing, so I know words.
Right. English is really hard.
It's so hard. And sound design, and most recently, intimacy choreography and directing.
So awesome.
And it is impossible to choose.
Yeah.
Because they're all so different.
Yeah.
And if I go without doing one for a while, I'm like, oh, I miss it.
Yeah.
Especially, I feel like directing and intimacy choreography are still a little bit new to me. So I don't quite have that like I miss it thing because I like just did it.
Right.
But everything else, after a while, I'm like, oh, there's something really exciting about like reading a script or watching a rehearsal and picking like the song that will be in this transition, or you get to do weird things. Like I did a sound design a few months ago where in a blackout, this is a little gruesome, in a blackout, someone had to be murdered, but the murder weapon was a candlestick that they just had to like be bludgeoned. So we just had to figure out, okay, well, what sound does a human skull make?
Oh my gosh. Our lives are so weird. Theater is so weird.
Theater's so weird. And then I'm like, one of these days the government is going to come and be like, why are you searching these things?
Seriously, like what is your Google history right here?
But we ended up using a wood splatter, a piece of meat being punched, and a pepper being cracked open, like a green pepper.
That is disgusting.
You have to sit there in the room, in the space, because it's different in the theater than it is on your laptop, and be like, I need more green pepper in this.
More green pepper, please. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. But then when I have been just doing sound design for a while, I'm like, oh, I miss acting. That muscle is getting... I want to
weak. I want to make it. Yeah, I want to practice and really flex that muscle. That's so cool. So it really kind of is about the variety for you.
Yeah. Like I think part of the reason I love theater so much is that I feel like theater and film are such collaborative art forms. Yes. And in order for a really successful production, you need engineers and you need dancers and you need artists who like visual artists, and you need visual artists who understand light, and visual artists who understand paint and sound and stories. Like there's so many different talents that need to come together to create a really beautiful production. And I'm a fan of like all of the arts, but certain arts are a little more solitary. Like painting is usually solitary.
Totally.
And writing is solitary. But in theater, you have to rely on each other.
Yeah.
And there's something so beautiful and so powerful about that I just can't get enough of.
All the elements just working together to create a story.
Yeah.
Yeah. I completely agree with you. I just saw a performance of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, and I was just so blown away at how many people would have had to get together to make one effect happen, because it was costuming, it was lighting, it was stage technology, it was like for one 5-second thing, how many things had to come together, and choreography and music, and it really was a beautiful show about collaboration for me.
Yeah, I love that. I haven't seen the show yet.
You will see.
But I have read it.
Yes.
And I read it with some friends who are all like theater makers and actors and designers. And so we would pause and be like, okay, how would you do the library when they're fighting the library? How would you do it? And we were like, okay, what if we had to do it with like $20? How can we make this work? And it was so exciting. So I can only imagine how incredible it would be.
So good. Okay, so you just had a recent project called Safe at another theater company.
I did.
Talk to me about it.
It was beautiful.
Yeah.
So it was written by a local playwright, a company member at another theater company named Chelsea Hickman. And it was her thesis project for her MFA in playwriting. And she teaches theater down at UVU and also for another company that I can't remember the name of, but it's for children and they're great. But it's the story of two women who meet at BYU and fall in love.
Wow.
And their journey of the story's told kind of out of chronological order.
Yeah.
And their journey through spouses and miscarriages and trying to reconcile the faith that they feel with the love that they feel for one another and finding the places where you can feel safe. And it seemed to really resonate with a lot of folks here in Utah, that there's a huge population of queer folks who spent time at BYU being terrified and hurting. And this is a story that both acknowledges that hurt and offers some healing.
How cool.
The first 3 weeks of rehearsal, I cried every single day.
Ooh, this is real.
Just because of being so moved by the work that it's a small cast. It's 2 women and 2 men. And all 4 of those actors just were so willing to be vulnerable.
Wow.
And honest and willing to try things that I asked them to do, even though I was like, I don't know if this will work. And then sometimes it did and sometimes it didn't. And
that's the best kind of theater.
Yep. Yeah. Where I can't think of a better phrase other than in rehearsal, it's helpful to have an atmosphere where kind of nothing is sacred.
Right.
Of I want to try this. And then if it doesn't work, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah. We're not attached to it. We can do something better. We can workshop it.
Yeah.
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 That's amazing.
So, yeah.
So I bet that went really hand in hand with your intimacy training.
Yes.
Right?
It did.
Yeah. I bet you used a lot of that training.
I really did. So one of the big myths about intimacy training that I kind of I'm finding more and more as I talk to people about it, intimacy training, intimacy choreography isn't just for Equus or Spring Awakening or shows that have really explicit moments.
Yeah.
In Safe, there are 3 moments of stage kissing.
Yeah.
One of them, a girl and her boyfriend are making out in a dorm room, and then someone walks in on them,
mm-hmm.
and she's supposed to be saying oh, this we shouldn't, and he's saying no, it'll be fine. And then in another one of them, one of the actresses is in a bra and underwear, and intimacy choreography is so helpful in those moments of undress, of any kind of physical touch. We also had some movement pieces.
Oh, cool.
Because it allows actors to speak up for themselves, to say, I have a boundary around being tickled, or I have a boundary around the back of my knees being touched.
Interesting.
And so then the other actor can go, okay, so no knee touching.
Yeah.
And it also means that as a director, I can give them really specific instructions. So if I'm doing an intimacy choreography job with another director, I can say, how realistic do you want this to be? Or do you want this more stylized?
Yeah.
If this were a movie, would this be rated G, PG, PG-13, R, or X?
Yeah. Where are we
NC-17?
going with it?
And then instead of telling someone, okay, if you could make out with her, but make it so that she's uncomfortable and worried that someone comes in, which opens the doors for all kinds of challenges. Instead, I can say, let's do one kiss on the lips for about 1 second. And then, Maddie, will you show Tyler 3 places between the top of your ear and your collarbone that you'll allow him to kiss? And then we'll spend about 1 second, 1 count on each of those, and then he'll go back up.
It becomes choreography.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that it's also repeatable. Mm-hmm. You don't have any surprises.
Yes.
And the more I learn about it, the more I'm like, I don't understand why we haven't been doing this for decades.
Yes.
We do it with fight choreography where we have a fight
break
call.
it all down. And it is choreography. But so many times directors will go, okay, and then just kiss for this 8 counts. And you're like, okay.
But like, what kind of kiss?
What are we doing? Yeah, like what though? And then these two people that have like done 2 rehearsals together are like, all right, let's find this. Let's figure it out.
Yeah. So one of the other things that you can sometimes use as a placeholder, which is like essentially an extended high five. So
Rad.
hands can tell the same story that lips do.
Yeah.
You can say, okay, if your right hand is this person and your left hand is this person, who initiates the kiss?
Yeah.
Is there a visible power shift halfway through?
Yeah.
Is there how far part of their body?
Yeah.
And so then the actors, especially if they're like, this is their second or third rehearsal, you can say, just tell the story with your hands.
Yeah. And they can play that through almost like a puppet, right?
Yeah.
That's
so then there are also no surprises.
Right? Okay, so tell me, go to the beginning of your training. What did it look like? What kinds of things do you touch on as you learn? How do you break down a scene? How do you do it? Go to the beginning.
So I received my training with theatrical intimacy education.
Cool.
There are only like a handful of organizations that do intimacy training. There's that one, Intimacy Directors International. There's another small group called Heartland Intimacy. And then there are a couple more here and there popping up. But it really, all of these organizations are like 3 or 4 years old.
So soon.
So new.
Yeah.
So,
and is this online?
No, I did a workshop. Salt Lake Acting Company hosted the workshop, and it's 2 days, so 16 hours of training. And at first I was like nervous. I was like, am I going to have to like do things with people in this workshop?
Like intimacy training. Like what does that even mean?
Do? But first of all, the teacher said you can choose your level of participation. If you would like to join in on the exercises, you're welcome to. If you would feel more comfortable simply observing, you can also do that. And way before we learned anything else, we spent a long time talking about kind of the culture that has been created in theater.
Yeah.
And how we're working to change it. So one of the really big things is there's this sort of myth of, well, you have to be willing to do anything because if you're not, there are 50 people in line behind you.
You're not a serious actor.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have boundaries and they're healthy and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we can tell whatever story we need to tell with your boundaries in place. And we will tell you at the audition, this is what is required of this role.
Yeah.
If this doesn't feel like something you can do, this might not be the project for you.
Yeah.
But if it's something that you feel willing to do, then come join us.
No surprises.
Yeah. No surprises.
From the audition.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And then we learned a boundary exercise, which will be kind of hard to explain without demonstrating.
Yeah.
But so there's kind of a good, better, best situation. Of good is just checking in, saying like, hey, is it okay if I touch you?
Yeah.
Better is saying, are there any areas of your body that you would prefer that I not touch?
Yeah.
So getting specific.
Yeah.
And then best is to do this boundary practice where me and my scene partner stand opposite each other and I use my own hands and show on my own body using like a kind of slow swiping motion.
Yeah.
All the places on my body I'm giving that person permission to touch in this rehearsal, in this scene today.
Cool.
And then after I do that, then I take their hands and I move their hands over those same places, because then it means that the first time someone else touches me, I am in control of it.
Totally.
And it also, we teach people like, here's how to say like, pause button. I have a boundary about touching. So something that might happen is if we're scene partners, I may move my hands over the front of my chest. And a lot of women have boundaries around that part of their body
Absolutely.
being touched.
Yeah.
I may not have a problem with it, so I may move my hands. But my scene partner, when I move their hands, they may say, pause button. I have a boundary about touching someone else there.
Yeah.
Can I hover instead?
Cool.
Like, yeah, okay.
Let's do it.
And
But just like complete communication.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And my favorite thing about it is one of the rules is to not explain or justify your boundaries.
Interesting.
Because we
You're
have
like,
this.
oh, I have this weird thing because of this and this and that. And you're like, no. I just don't want to do that.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah. And sometimes the director can say, is this something you have some discomfort about that you would be willing to explore? Or is this a boundary? And the actor can say, no, actually, I just was kind of feeling homophobic about like touching someone of the same gender this way, but I think I'm willing to work through it. Or they can say, no, I have a boundary. We need to do something different.
Totally.
And
Oh, wow.
it's so empowering because then, like, actors, in order for us to be creative, and there's like neuroscience behind this, in order for us to be creative, we can't do that when we're afraid.
Totally.
And when we're anxious and when we're nervous or we don't know what's expected of us or we don't know what's, if we're going to be safe,
Yeah.
then it's really hard to like make choices and to figure out what this character wants and why what they're doing. So intimacy choreography creates that safety that allows everyone to do their work.
Right.
And it's the best.
That's just incredible. Because seriously, I think we take fight choreography so seriously. Mm-hmm. And we, everything is just planned and you practice it before every show. And it's like choreographed and timed and everything. Uh-huh. And then you just feel like a fish out of water, just like thrown out to the ocean going, what am I doing? When intimacy comes up, and I think it's because of discomfort from a director. I think it's discomfort from fellow actors, and it's just something that we don't want to talk about.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah. One of the big things that theatrical intimacy education does is they have worked really hard to find ways to just desexualize the rehearsal room. Mm. So they kind of have these like different ingredients of like, okay, you're going to close the distance between you and your partner. You're going to open the distance between you and your partner. And then instead of using like anatomical words for the parts of our body that usually have to do with sexuality, we can instead think of like muscles or bones of like, I have a boundary around someone touching me on the front of my pelvis. Yeah. Which also is automatically inclusive of trans folks, queer folks, sexual assault survivors, anyone for whom that may be a little bit more complicated to talk about. Yeah. But that way you don't have to be like, and then come up with a euphemism. You just say, it's the front of my pelvis.
Yeah. And it makes it so much more cut and dry.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah. Okay. So I want to know, where do you see the need for an intimacy choreographer in theater, in your community right now?
Almost everywhere.
Tell me about it.
So in our like local Utah theater scene, there are only kind of a handful of theaters that do the kind of work that people like initially think like, oh, I need an intimacy choreographer for that. But like, Centerpoint just did Streetcar Named Desire.
Oh, for sure.
And there is some pretty intense intimacy in that show. Yeah. None of which
violence, that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. None of which is explicit enough to keep Centerpoint from doing it.
No, yeah.
But those kind of shows, anytime that there's any kind of physical, intimate touch. So it doesn't have to be sexual touch. Yeah. It can just be romantic touch or intimate touch. Yeah. And there's so many reasons to do it. Like, not only does it just artistically free people up, it also prevents us from creating a culture of abuse or harassment. which, you know, theater and film is weird. Like, we're doing things at our jobs in rehearsal that we would definitely get fired for if we were doing them like at Walmart.
Totally. Anywhere corporate. Yeah. But here it's like, it's your job. Do it. Come on.
Yeah.
What's the deal?
It helps kind of remove that risk. And so, like, even if I was just being completely uncaring about actors, it is a little bit of an insurance policy for theater companies.
Absolutely.
It helps, it just kind of helps protect everyone. I listened to the episodes on the podcast about sexual grooming.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Working with children.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the issues some of the situations that just sort of naturally occur in theater.
Yeah.
We can help avoid those by either consulting with an intimacy director and saying, how can we address this? And you can make simple rules like, okay, children and adults never share a dressing room.
Mm-hmm.
Those who are in the dressing room, please change efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want people walking around in their underwear.
Yeah. There's children here.
Yeah. So like in Safe, for example, the scene in which one of the actresses is in her underwear, she gets home from a date and she's wearing a dress and her roommate helps her change her clothes. But intermission ends with her in her underwear. Yeah. And there's intermission and then we come back to her in her underwear.
Yeah.
So one of the rules is as soon as that actress gets off stage, there's a robe waiting for her that she puts on and wears.
Yeah.
An intimacy director can help a theater figure out ways to like put things on an audition notice of this story contains a choreographed stage kiss. Are you comfortable with this? Yes, no, I need more information.
Yeah.
And then if they need more information, you can just pull them aside after callbacks and say, hey, I heard you had some questions. And they can say, I'm just not okay with like sexual assault kind of kissing, but if it's like romantic, that's cool.
Totally. Mm-hmm. Totally. Because yeah, there is a mentality of almost like, I don't know, pride that's just kind of like, oh, I'm a serious actor and I am willing to do whatever the show needs, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, we do ourselves a disservice by saying that our opinions and our own feelings don't matter for the sacrifice for the sake of the art. And I'm like, no, that there are some things that you can definitely get more information about, make sure you're comfortable with in order to create the art that you want to create.
Yeah, exactly. We, part of the Me Too movement and Jeffrey Epstein and like all of these big situations, Harvey Weinstein, all of these kind of big breakout stories in the media made it so clear that this is a need that has existed for decades.
Yeah.
And we, for whatever reason, I have my theories. I think the reason is that for decades and decades, men have been in charge of these industries, and men tend to benefit from women not being allowed to say no.
Yeah, not setting boundaries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so now, more and more, as women are like, no, I am perfectly capable of directing a show. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And as women are standing up and saying, you can't do this to me. You can't do this to us anymore. Time is up.
Time's up, man.
Time's up. That now, not only are we saying time's up, we're saying, and here's how we're going to keep it from happening to our daughters and to our sisters and to our mothers and to each other.
Yeah.
Doing this training with theatrical intimacy education, we spent probably about half of the time learning how to like actually choreograph. So we're given like this little scene that's really vague of like two people on their way home from the date. This is mine. Cool. Okay. So good night. Which anything can happen in that scene. So people would just choreograph different stories.
Yeah.
But probably the other half of training was talking about, okay, here's how you set up channels of communication for reporting.
Yeah.
Here's how you're able to put these things in the contract beforehand.
Yeah.
Here's how to decide what the consequences are.
Yeah.
So
logistics.
yeah. So you can say, okay, the contract states any instances of intimacy will be choreographed. If you deviate from that choreography, you will be warned. If you do it again, you will be fined. If you do it again, you will be fired. And it is in writing.
Yes.
So you can't be like, I didn't know I wasn't supposed to.
It's protecting everyone. Yeah.
Yeah. And it is the teacher, Chelsea Pace, told stories about, her background as a fight choreographer, that sometimes people would like deviate from her choreography.
Yes.
And she would be like, hold, that's not the choreography. Do you need a refresher?
Yeah.
And sometimes they'd be like, no, I was just feeling it. And she would say, that's not your job.
Nope.
And I was like, and it was so like empowering to see like Chelsea Pace is short.
Yes.
And like feminine and powerful. And to see a woman say, that's not my choreography. It's not your job to feel it. It's your job to do the choreography I gave you.
Yeah, and keep everyone safe.
Yeah, I was like,
yes, thank you. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I saw recently that you had posted an article about the Joker. Do you remember this?
I do.
This kind of goes into this just a little bit. And I remember reading this article and being just shocked by it. And I was so glad that you had said something, because I think it was something that was, I don't know, applauded or like not even really frowned upon in the article.
Yeah.
Do you want to explain the article a little bit?
Yeah. So there are different levels. So where do I start? So some actors get a reputation for being difficult to work with because they have like weird asks of like,
Sure.
Like Michael Caine doesn't wear shoes on camera if he can help it. So like if his feet are not in the shot, he's like, I don't want to wear shoes.
Sweet Michael.
I know. Which, a man after my own heart.
Right.
I am not wearing shoes right now.
We're shoeless together.
Or, certain actors may say, I need no one else extra on the set. Things that feel like kind of demanding.
That you're like, wow.
To be frank, those things might be annoying, but I kind of don't care. Most of the time I might grumble, but I'm like, okay, fine, we can work with it.
Yeah.
The things that Joaquin Phoenix did on the set of The Joker were things like refusing to attend rehearsal for fights, or refusing to be taught choreography, or choosing to improv fight choreography.
Yeah, because he wanted to feel it, and he wanted to be spontaneous.
Yeah. And I have really admired Joaquin Phoenix's work in a lot of films.
Yeah. He's brilliant, man.
Yeah. But if you can't do your work without endangering your fellow artists, you might not be a good actor.
Right. If you can't make it look like your choreography is spontaneous and the first time you're doing it.
Yeah. Sorry, man. So I'm very, very grumpy about him being applauded for this role, which I actually haven't seen the movie. I've made the choice that for me, I don't think I want to.
Yeah, it's not a good thing for me either.
Yeah, I feel like I don't want to support that kind of art being made.
Yeah.
Because for a long time we did reward, we're like, oh man, that's so crazy. He's just feeling it, that he's refusing to take antibiotics, that he's like, but no, you can still do your work.
Yes.
And
yes.
I always feel like it's also like just white men who are like this. Sorry, white men listeners, but I don't know, like
you just don't hear about any other people.
No, like
that's interesting.
Toni Collette and Michelle Williams and all of them are like, it's acting.
Yeah, right.
So so when I posted the article, I said, if you try to do something like this for something I'm directing, you will be warned, then you will be fined, and then you will be fired.
Right.
And I was thinking about it and I was like, what if I was like with this studio? What if I was the choreographer for The Joker and it was Joaquin Phoenix? I think it would be really, really difficult, but but I feel really empowered by the examples that I see of other people doing things like this, of standing up and saying, this isn't okay. This needs to stop. And if the studio says, well, we can't get rid of Joaquin, he's part of the deal, then I'll say, then you'll need to find another choreographer.
Like, to have your name attached to that would be hard, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the biggest thing for me in that article was just that it wasn't even an issue. It was almost like, look how cool, look how awesome this was. And it even had like examples of the actual stuntmen being like, yeah, I had to just watch out because I had no idea what he was going to do. And I was like, man, how terrible to put your fellow actors in that position, that they just couldn't trust you. Yeah. And how are they supposed to do their best work if they're just terrified?
Yeah. To decide that your work as an actor is more, that you feeling it as an actor is more important than the work of your fellow actors is pretty egotistical. And it ruins the like collaboration that we talked about that makes theater and film so powerful.
Totally.
That, you know, I originally saw that article posted in another group that I'm part of just like actors and theater professionals and stuff. And in the comments, people were saying, well, I was background on a film with Joaquin Phoenix of such and such film years ago, and he beat up one of the fellow actors, and the other actor was like, we need to stop. I can't do this. No. And the director said, let's do one more take. Joaquin wants to do one more take.
Oh my gosh.
And it just makes my stomach clench.
It makes my blood boil. Yeah. Just thinking about it.
Yeah. So I think also a lot of people in the theater community also know that within the last few months, Utah Repertory Theater closed its doors. Yeah. And it was kind of a little mini Me Too experience of people saying we were being asked to do violent things, to do dangerous things, to do sexual things. And we weren't helped. We weren't protected. We weren't. It wasn't, and the more and more that people talked about it, the more it became really clear that this was an ongoing pattern, and that the people who were supposed to be the ones who were like, well, if something goes wrong, talk to this person, that this person wasn't taking those things seriously. Right. And it is a painful reckoning.
Oh, absolutely.
It is hard, but it's a necessary one. Yeah. And it's possible for people to say, hey, I messed up. I've been messing up for a long time, and I'm sorry, that must have felt awful. Yeah. I'm going to take a minute and figure this out. Yeah. For myself. Yeah. And I can only imagine how heartbreaking that would be. Like if someone came to me and said, hey, that thing you did when you were a director for this thing, or you were a sound director.
Or, in charge in any way.
Yeah. Yeah. And said, you can't do that. Yeah. My initial response would be like, oh, it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, just try to like justify, right? Yeah.
But now's the time for us to recognize each other's agency. Yeah. And to recognize that we're all doing the best we can with what we have. Totally. And here are the tools. Intimacy, choreography, and direction gives you the tools to both help prevent that from happening. Yeah. And to work through it when it does happen. Yeah. Because sometimes things happen. Like sometimes.
Totally. It's live theater. It's, it's crazy.
That something could go wrong, or one day you could be sick and you can say, we have to adjust this. Yeah. Or sometimes, I don't know if this has ever happened to you on stage, but sometimes, especially when you are doing like a long run of a show, towards the end of the run, you could like make grocery lists in your head while you're doing it if you don't like
focus every single time. Yeah.
And so if you're tired or you're not feeling well or something is bugging you and you're supposed to throw a punch or you're supposed to parry something or you're supposed to kiss someone, could be that things don't go the way they usually do. Yeah. Or if you trip or something happens.
Absolutely.
Then being able to go backstage and find your scene partner and say, I am so sorry about that. Here's the script for an apology. I'm sorry. acknowledge and validate their feelings, say that you are going to try to change, thank them for their patience or for letting you know that you did something wrong.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
That I love that, because it can be so awkward to admit your faults, right? Yeah. I had an experience like 2 weeks ago where I was doing a show with another cast, and we had done the fight choreography right before at Fight Call. But I was I was supposed to kind of throw someone off of my shoulder if they were trying to comfort me, and I was trying to throw them off, and I don't know what happened, but my elbow went flying and I hit him in the face.
Oh no.
It was awful. And the second it happened, I was like, oh my gosh. And I could just tell I knocked him real good. And right after, just was like, I cannot believe it. But man, live theater is just so crazy, because you can be doing it and one person will do it slightly different than the other, and and you get thrown in and it's just a little bit different. So being able to be gracious and say, hey, I'm so sorry, can we practice that beforehand next time, can we do that, it's so important to communicate, to make your fellow actors feel safe and make sure that they don't flinch next time you're on stage, because I worry about that.
Yeah, and especially like there are a lot of Utah theaters that do double casting, so it means that sometimes you'll be put in with a different cast.
Absolutely.
And if someone is 2 inches taller, that changes everything.
It's so weird.
Yeah. Or it could be that like someone usually crosses over here on the line, and this time they do it after the line.
Yes.
Like, so being able to say, okay, in the moments when we are kissing or the moments where we are fighting, it stays the same.
Yes.
Nothing changes
and
about
don't
this.
skip your fight choreography.
Yeah. Don't
go every single time.
Yes. Yeah. Do a boundary practice beforehand where you say, these are the parts of my body. If you don't have time, you can say, I have a fence around the front of my chest and the front and back of my pelvis.
There you go.
and
there it is.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I feel like it's the first time I've ever heard that there's actual neuroscience to not being able to be creative when you're not feeling safe.
Yes. I highly recommend. This book is recommended to me both by like my own therapist and like other intimacy choreographers, and by the people who create like the program of Intimacy Choreographer. There's a book called The Body Keeps the Score by someone Dutch whose name I can't pronounce.
I will find it and link it in the show notes.
And it's kind of dense. It takes a while to get through, but he does a really good job of showing like, okay, here's what is happening in your brain when you are afraid.
Yeah.
So one of the big things to recognize, and I think something that we're really starting to learn as a society, is that the way we think people will respond when they're having a flashback or when they're being traumatized or when they're recovering from trauma is we think that they'll be like really emotional. But that's usually not how the brain works. The brain usually goes into fight, flight, or freeze. So if someone is testifying in court, explaining how she was sexually assaulted, they may tell the story very matter of fact and not show any emotion. And it's not because they're lying, and it's not because it didn't happen. It's because their brain is incapable of finding and expressing those emotions because it's too much. It's a way that the brain like protects itself.
Yeah.
So it's really helpful to know that too when you're doing intimacy choreography.
Yeah.
Because then if you're choreographing something and you notice that someone just freezes up, then you can say, pause button, let's take 5.
Yeah.
Or let's do an exercise to kind of help us get out of this.
Yeah. The funk.
Yeah. Get back in our bodies, learn how to feel safe in our bodies. And if you also know that as a scene partner, and also as a fellow human being,
yes,
to someone else, then it can be really powerful.
Yeah.
And I'm not a therapist, but it's been really helpful to start to like gather those tools of kind of mental health first aid.
Absolutely.
Of if we're doing a scene, and sometimes it may not even be intimacy choreography. It may be someone lost their father in a traumatic way 6 months before playing this role where the relationship with the father is a plot point. And it could be that we're doing a scene and someone gets shaky, or they get really cold, or find that they're not able to make eye contact, or have a really hard time remembering their lines. That what's happening is that their brain is like, we're bumping up against this thing that hurt us.
Yeah.
And my job as the brain is to keep this human alive.
Totally. Survival mode.
And so you go into survival mode, and the blood like rushes to your internal organs. So you might feel cold or shaky.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah. Or, making eye contact with people is really vulnerable. And when you're in that mode, the part of your brain, your frontal lobe, that is really good at logic and making decisions and stuff, is offline.
It's like, nope, can't be reached.
It's the same reason why in the initial moment on stage, when you can't remember a line and you panic, that line will not come.
No, your frontal lobe is like, no, better not.
Offline, can't problem solve. So you have to just like take a deep breath and then trust that either muscle memory will kick in or get yourself kind of calm enough. And in the moment, like, you can do it in like 1 second, even though in the moment it feels like 10 years.
Yes. Totally.
Yeah.
That's so crazy. Okay, I want to know, what are you working on now? What's on the horizon for you?
Yeah. I don't have any projects like fully booked right now.
Yeah.
But I am doing, if you want to learn more about intimacy choreography, I do have 2 workshops scheduled.
Cool.
I'm going to be teaching a workshop in the beginning of April at another theater company in Provo. And that will be sometime during General Conference weekend. But I don't know the details yet.
We'll look out for it.
Yeah. And then I'm also going to be teaching that same workshop again at On Pitch Performing Arts in Layton in July. And hopefully I'm on the wait list for another training workshop with a different organization in March.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed for me. And other than that, I had a lot going on the last like month or so. So I kind of was like, I need to recalibrate, because I think if I were 100%. To try to do a show right now as an actor, I would not do great work.
Like, I might implode. I might go into my lower brain and go in survival mode.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So, but I will post about all of these things on my website, which is www.lizwhitaker.com, WHITTAKER.
Yes.
And that's also where you can reach me if you think that your production or your theater company could use a consultation or could use someone to be an intimacy director. The really great thing about that is that it means that I'm there for maybe 2 rehearsals.
Yeah.
3. I can come in, give you some tools, help you choreograph. One of the rules about it is that I do not step in or touch actors or demonstrate, which also means I can do this over FaceTime. I can do this over Skype.
That's pretty awesome.
So it's really awesome.
Yeah.
So if you are a part of a production or theater company that you're like, these people need to know how to talk to their actors in ways that are safer, then I would love to come in and just have a sit down and say, here are some things you can do. One really simple thing, avoid asking yes or no questions of actors. Instead of saying, is it okay if he touches you? You can say, how would you feel about him touching you in this moment of this kind of touch?
Yeah.
Because it allows actors the opportunity to say, I feel good about that, or I don't know.
Instead of just no.
Yeah, it's hard. It's scary to say no. And so at this point, because I'm still like building my resume, my rates are low, as in if you give me a couple of comp tickets, I am good to go.
You're like, I'm there. Mm-hmm.
So I really want to focus kind of the next like 6 months to a year on really building this part of my training and this part of my resume and spreading it all around the world, and especially here in Utah.
Yeah.
And finding ways to help us all feel safe and included and capable and creative.
Yeah.
Able to do our work.
You gave me goosebumps. I love it. Thank you so much for coming today.
Yeah, it was a joy.
You've been listening to the Pepper Fox Podcast. Love what you heard today? Go ahead, share it with your friends, and leave us a review. Get more actor tips and resources by visiting pepperfoxphoto.com and check us out on Instagram at pepperfoxphoto.